This weekend marked the International Aeroid Society's Tropical Plant Exposition in Miami, Florida. It's a place where people come from all over the world to showcase and to see new plants, new products, new breeding work, and capture new content surrounding plants, specifically aeroids and houseplants. And as it was coming up, I thought, you know what, I might do a video about what I've learned, some useful tips that aren't always talked about and don't always come up in these kind of YouTube videos. And I just want to share my experiences using some of these hacks. I hate calling it hacks, so I might call it something else. It just reminds me of the horror of a 5 minutes craft.
Ew, what's that? Brother, ooh.
Baby, do you know that's where heaven is a place on earth? They say heaven, love comes first.
Anyway, so what is an aroid? An aroid is a plant belonging to the family Areaceae. Areaceae, or commonly known as the arum family. In the Northern Hemisphere, I think aroids do make up the majority of our houseplants. That includes philodendrons, monsteras, things like peace lilies. The way you can tell them apart from other plants is that their flower spike has spadix, which is this kind of upright, phallic looking thing, surrounded by a spathe, which kind of looks like a leaf. It's like a sheath that protects the actual flower part. And this is one of the biggest ways to tell if a plant is an aroid or not, but it's not the only way. There are lots of other factors, but that is the main consistent way. And some of these cheat codes, that's what I'm gonna go with. These cheat codes are quite useful to think about if you're really into collecting plants and you're serious about maybe breeding them or producing them commercially or getting like a bit of money to sell as like a hobby. So wait to the end to actually find the full list of cheat codes. We're going with cheat codes. The number one thing we're going to talk about is propagation. Everyone talks about rooting cuttings in soil or moss or straight up water, but when I try soil, I get crispy brown leaves and unfortunately those leaves can die off. They'll produce new leaves, but it gets really leggy, especially if it's like a monstera or philodendron, and they grow really fast and they grow really tall, and then you have that big bit of space with no leaves. And then whenever I've ordered moss, it ends up smelling, or there's flies in it, or it goes moldy. I find it really difficult to find good Spanger moss online, especially that's affordable. So I tend to avoid Spanger moss. I know it works really well for a lot of people, but I've just never got it to work properly. And it always ends up rotting my cuttings and smelling like something out of Shrek's swamp. When you prop in water, you can have issues with nutrient depletion, because if you're not adding in nutrients to the water after it's got roots, the leaves can go a bit yellow, so lack of nitrogen in the water and things like that. One thing to think about when you're rooting hydroponically is that water roots aren't as strong as soil roots. So they might grow really fast, you'll get loads of them, but they tend to be quite fragile. And when you transfer it later into soil, it can have a hard time and it can drop leaves again. So maybe that's not the best way to do it. I know it works and it's one of the easiest ways to propagate your plants, especially if you're a beginner. But there is a way to merge the soil and hydroponic cutting that doesn't involve leca, because I've always found I get root rot with leca and I've never been able to fix that. So it doesn't involve leca, and that's to propagate them aeroponically in an aeroponics container. Basically, this method involves misting the cuttings instead of placing them in straight water, so the cuttings have access to oxygen, as well as producing roots that still have to get a little bit hardy and search a little bit for the moisture and the nutrients in the kind of humidity, the mist that we've created. So they tend to be much stronger. You can feel it and you can see the size of the roots. One day I think I'll actually show you and show a side by side of the same plant in water and aeroponics, because you can see the difference, I think. This method also keeps up the humidity. So if you're using something like an Extreme, it holds in the humidity where the leaves are, so they don't go brown and crispy and they don't drop their leaves. And I think most of my plants, they root in about 2 weeks when I use aeroponics. Some a little bit longer. Philodendron Pink Princess can take a bit longer, especially if there's lower light levels. Variegated plants do take longer as well. But because it's such a shorter time than rooting in water or other methods, you can transfer them into soil, or you can add nutrients a lot faster into the water. Then they don't go as yellow and they don't drop as many leaves, and it just seems to be a lot faster of a process. You don't want to add nutrients into the water too quickly before they've properly developed roots, as fertilizers can scorch new roots. It's pretty cheap to do as well. You don't have to buy an X-Stream that costs hundreds of pounds. You can do it by getting a large plastic tub and then cutting holes in the top of the tub and getting another tub to enclose it, keep that humidity in, and then just suspending the plants and buying a kind of like I think it's like a pond sprayer. You can get them for like watering plants and stuff, and you can put that in the bottom. You fill it up with water and it'll pump and spray your cuttings. So that's a method of propagation I don't think is talked about enough, especially with these houseplants and plants. If nothing has worked for you, try it and let me know what happened. Cheat code number 2 is keiki paste. The name of the paste is Hawaiian for baby or child, and it comes from an egg. Paste contains cycotonin. I hope I pronounced that right as well. I'll put it up on the screen, which is a hormone that induces growth and stimulates the nose to produce growth. The paste also may contain lanolin, and a lot of plant enthusiasts do use lanolin and extra of the hormone to make the paste themselves at home. So if you've got a really leggy plant and you want to get some more leaf growth in, all you have to do is score the node slightly, especially if it's a really thick, chunky node, and apply a little bit of paste to that area around where the node is, and you should see some new growth. It's worked for quite a lot of people. I've done it and I've had some mixed results, but I tried it again for this video, so we'll see if we get any new growth from these areas. So the paste stimulates cell division and can trigger growth from a dormant node. The next thing is a super easy cheat code to do, and that is how to check for spider mites. Spider mites and thrips are the biggest pest killers, I think, for houseplants. The amount of times I've seen online, these spider mites have killed my whole collection, I can't get rid of them. They seem to be the biggest pests, the most comments and posts about them in forums online. And the issue with spider mite is that they're so difficult to see. You normally only see the damage that they cause, but you want to get to that damage earlier because that damage lets disease in where it's been wounded and can cause all sorts of other issues for the plant and then spread diseases, and it's just a nightmare really. But how can you guess if they're there at the very start of destruction? Well, if there's a leaf that you think, oh, it's not perfect, there's some damage to it, I'm not sure what's going on with it, and you turn it over and you can't really see anything, then I suggest getting a spray bottle filled with water and then just misting the air around the leaf lightly, and getting a torch or a bright light from your phone or something, and to see if the water droplets stick to any of their webbing. The webbing is such a telltale sign that it is spider mites, and then you can get on and spray it for spider mites. You might end up getting a biocontrol pest that specifically targets spider mite, or a specific chemical designed to get rid of spider mites. My final cheat code of this video is how to get them to flower. Plant enthusiasts that are really into like breeding and stuff like that really try and get their plants to flower and to see if they can get new seeds, if they can cross-pollinate. But getting these plants to flower at a similar time is so hard, especially in the UK. There's not that much light, variable temperature. So if you want to get your plants to flower, listen up. Phosphorus is the most important nutrient for getting your plants to flower. It supports the development of flowers, fruits, and really helps to promote root and flower growth. If you want to encourage your plant to flower, increase the levels of phosphorus you have in the fertilizer. You can do that by adding a liquid feed that is just phosphorus to it in with your current liquid feed to really boost the phosphorus. You can get granules, although I'm not quite sure, that is more phosphorus heavy than the other nutrients. You will need all the nutrients though to promote the plant's overall health, and there are other nutrients that do support the flowering of the plant, but phosphorus is the main one for flowering. So my second point for getting them to flower is actually stressing them out. If they think they're gonna die, they're gonna want to reproduce rapidly. They're gonna want to put out a flower spike before they die, because then their existence has been for something. Because much like the cast of Love Island, all they want to do is reproduce. So how I stress my plants out is basically I forget to water them. That's pretty much it. With higher temperatures in the spring, forget to water them for a while, and then I water them. And this can be good and bad, because if you forget to water them, it can cause the soils to become hydrophobic. When you do water them, it doesn't retain that moisture in the soil anymore, and it just drains out bottom, which is something you don't want to happen. Another thing you don't want to happen is the roots actually die back because they're not getting any water, and then when you water them, the dead parts of the root rot, and it causes rot to spread up the stem. So that's not fun either. But it does work. 2 flowers now on my anthurium over there, so that's something. And that was purely by stressing it out and feeding it a normal fertilizer. So it's pretty well known in the world of fresh produce that when you add CO2 to the atmosphere around a plant, the plant gets bigger and it produces bigger flowers or fruit a lot faster. Carbon dioxide does help the plant photosynthesize, and it also helps the cells literally build the plant. The plant is made of carbon. If you want to know more about plants and adding CO2 to plants, then I will link a few studies and reports and articles down in the description below. Some people use CO2 fire extinguishers connected to a timer to do this. And if you're going to do this in a grow tent or a greenhouse, obviously an enclosed space, definitely read up on the science behind it for your own safety as well. If it gets to over 5,000 parts per million of CO2 in the air, then it is fatal for humans. The optimal amount of CO2 you want is 1,000 to 1,200 parts per million, and you will also need to increase the lighting, the temperature, the humidity, nutrients and water for your plant. Otherwise, it's just going to plateau at a certain parts per million. And around 1,500 parts per million, that's where it kind of stops, and you can actually see it starting to go back down again, and any more carbon dioxide in the air around it can actually cause a lot of damage to the plant. But if done correctly, you can rapidly increase the growth of your plant and double the speed that it grows and produces flowers if you do it properly. For flowering specifically, you're going to want to add it about 2 weeks before it flowers. It's producing that flower. That seems to be the most effective time period to do it according to the studies. But again, I'll link articles below. And there's many more videos on YouTube with a lot more scientific detail than this one. So there are all my Aeroid plant cheat codes. I hope they've been somewhat helpful. And if you're a beginner, try some of these out. Maybe you've been doing these for a long time, and let me know how you get on in the comments down below. What cheat code surprised you the most? Let me know, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.